Welcome to Be On It, episode 16.
Hey Jessica, what's going on in the Beehive today?
Hey, Debbie. I was thinking about trauma that I've healed, so healing my trauma. And I was thinking and reflecting about how far I've come and why it took me so long to heal from some of my trauma. And what I realized is that healing from trauma, it's a really slow process throughout your life. And what I mean by that is I had to really have the wisdom and maturity to look back and examine, why do I feel angry? Why can't I forgive? And why am I holding on to this? And what I personally discovered when I was younger, I held on to anger on what should have been instead of the reality of what was. I was angry that I didn't get parents that showed love and support in the way I needed. And I had empathy for everyone else, but I did not have it for my parents. And it wasn't until I raised my own children and had to be accountable on certain things that I could reflect back and go, oh, maybe had my parents, because they didn't heal their trauma, maybe I can put myself in their shoes and examine what that looked like and why they probably projected their trauma into raising my sister and I, and why they probably did the things they did because they didn't heal that trauma. And so it gave me more empathy to be more forgiving and understand that, when it comes to my mom, she just wasn't capable of being a mom. It just wasn't in her DNA. And had she maybe waited a little bit longer and healed some of her trauma, maybe things would be different. And then with my dad, he always kind of had childlike behavior. And I think he never healed that inner child that was traumatized.
Yeah.
And it was a really great way to kind of self-reflect and heal in a lot of ways, because having empathy and forgiveness for that, you don't forget, you just forgive. And that allowed me to drop the anger, but it took a long time and maturity and reflection to go, okay, this is what forgiveness means. I was holding on to it for so long, and why was I holding on to it? It took a long time. I don't know if you've ever had anger or things that you've held on to and you've reflected or you're like, why am I doing this?
Well, I think that while you're in it, you hold on to that anger, especially if you're a child and you have no agency and you just have to deal with whatever your parents are doing. Because I've had trauma from my dad when I was a child. Basically, while I was under his roof, you just have to deal with it. And my household was very authoritarian. I had to just repress a lot of feelings. So while I was in it, there was no way I was going to be healing anything, because you just keep getting triggered again and again, and you see certain things that you're not happy with. Now, I think for me, after I graduated from high school, I basically moved out. And so having that space away from him brought my emotions down. I can't say that I healed it. And I didn't feel that anger. I was triggered now and again, but I didn't feel that anger that I once felt when I was living under his roof.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I didn't even think about that aspect, that no wonder I couldn't heal it when I was in the middle of experiencing it. It wasn't until I moved away and got therapy, of course, that helped a little bit, but I was still not mature enough to be empathetic towards my parents. And so that anger just still kind of, I still kind of held on to that. I still had a relationship with them, but I didn't have a lot of empathy. And I always had empathy for everybody else. And so it just, like you said, it just took time and being away to start,
Start the process.
looking at things. And in my 20s, I didn't really examine that hard. I was too busy enjoying myself and being independent and hanging out with friends and working a job and traveling, doing things like that. So that wasn't on the forefront. It wasn't really until much later
So
that I
maybe in that way it's kind of age appropriate, or it does kind of go with your age, because as you when you move out and you remove yourself from the trauma, whatever age it may be. A lot of us have childhood trauma. So in that way, it is kind of like, okay, I can deal and start the process of healing the trauma because I'm older now. We don't deal with it in our adolescence. You know, we deal with it as
no,
young adults, or we deal with it when we're adults, basically.
right, exactly. When you're out
And
of that situation, like you said.
well, my dad never shared his story with me. And he was an alcoholic, so when he shared it was always under the influence. And his story, for me, I had a lot of feelings about the fact that his story and his actions didn't match. So in my opinion, I was like, if you had that past, then pick yourself up by the bootstraps and make a difference and change it for the next generation. Because he never healed that, he didn't have the capacity to change his behavior and to bring up a family or to support a family and have a whole different mindset. And so he did not pass on that trauma. So for me, I had a lot of feelings about the inconsistencies within my dad. Like,
Yeah.
if your actions don't show the remorse and like the turnaround. But that's how I felt. But at some point, I think along the way as an adult, I realized, and I think it was when I was a parent myself, is that you have certain constraints on you as a parent and you have a lot of responsibility. And also when you hear other people's stories, honest and raw and vulnerable stories, then I just was able to be a little more empathetic for my dad, who lived through, you know, a lot of turmoil himself and trauma himself. And so in that way, I was able to kind of bring those emotions down. Now, is it baggage? A little bit still. I still
Yeah.
have baggage. Do you?
I think, you know what? I feel like I have healed. I feel like because I reconnected with my dad and I had empathy because he was in a place health wise that he wasn't doing well, that I put that aside and just was more empathetic and got to know him. And then I was doing therapy as well. And I just had this better understanding that, oh my goodness, he didn't heal this. And no wonder he parented that way. Like he was working with the skills that he had. And he very much was very childlike behavior for most of my childhood and into adulthood. Very child, and still can be kind of childlike, but authoritative as well. And so it was this off kiltered experience where I'd have an inner child where he was the child and I was the parent kind of thing, and then I was the child and he was the authoritative figure. It was very hard growing up that way. And even when he calls, like there's certain things that trigger me. His authoritative voice, like anybody that like raises or has like a deep authoritative voice will trigger me. So there's still things that I will like I'll have to like, oh, that was a trigger, and I won't even know what's happening until it happens, but I can now identify it. But I feel like I have worked so hard, and the things that needed to be healed are healed now. Can I say that it's never not going to be a part of me? It's always a part of me. It's not an opened wound anymore, but it's still a wound that has a scar, and that scar sometimes it gets a little slightly opened every once in a while and then closes back up. Depends on situations that arise. It's a work in progress, and I think it always will be. And I think that is just how trauma is. Am I healthier and had a lot of time to reflect? Oh yeah. I think I'm in the best place I've ever been trauma wise and in healing it.
I think it makes sense that that is still around. It'll always be with you, because that isn't that the definition of trauma. It's something that's happened in your life where it's changed the trajectory of your life. And it was bad enough that it changed it changed how you developed as a person. I mean, I think I can look at my personality, and I can kind of trace it back to what impacted the development of my personality. from back in the day, subconsciously even. But when you say that you feel like you've healed the trauma because you were empathetic with your dad specifically, so with the empathy, you were able to forgive. Do you feel like that's when you reached the healing part? Okay.
Yes. With him, yes, because I already forgave my mom because I understood in my early 20s she just doesn't have that capability and she was trying. I could see her trying. And then as time went on, she was so connected to my grandmother that that changed for her when my grandmother passed away and my uncle passed away. More trauma came about and she got into some things that she unfortunately shouldn't have gotten into, and it kind of changed who she was, and so I had to pull back. But there's no trauma with her anymore. She just wasn't the mom I needed growing up. And it's so interesting because yesterday I was watching this movie and this mom talked about she parented how her mom parented, very authoritative, and so she raised her kids that way. And she said her biggest regret is she doesn't have a relationship with her kids because she parented that way and she would parent so differently. And I related to that, not because I raised my kids that I was not like that with my kids. I did exactly opposite, but because that was, I was like, it's never too late. That's what I was thinking. It's like, it's never too late for me to continue to have empathy and understanding. And when my mom or my dad end up being in a healthier place and I need to be open and non-judgmental and more empathetic and listen because they're trying. That's maybe their version of trying. It doesn't look perfect. They're trying their best. And that's what I saw from my dad. I saw him trying to be open. He was trying to make some changes. And with my mom, she's just not in a place that she's changing at the moment. Maybe she'll get there and she'll reach out. And I just need to be ready and open to listen and empathetic because she obviously hasn't dealt with some really, difficult things in her life, unfortunately. And so that's kind of what I'm learning as I go. And I'm in my 50, I just turned 50 and my parents are in their, late 70s. And I just have to be empathetic because everybody's rate of growth is so different.
Yeah. So, question about the point at which you healed your trauma. Do you remember when that was?
I feel like that was really this year when I reconnected with my dad.
Okay.
Because he was having health issues and my sister needed some help. And I just spent some time to put it all aside. And I had worked on myself as well. So I had a better understanding of we all have things going on in our lives and we all have a past and an upbringing that wasn't the easiest. And what did theirs look like? So I started asking more questions and getting answers, and it was really eye-opening. That and I had it gave me more empathy, and it gave me a chance to forgive that they did the best they could with what they had, and had they healed stuff they would be so different, and they just didn't have that capability. And it made me sad for them, and not that they couldn't change, but they just weren't there yet.
So forgiveness, empathy, acceptance is what I'm hearing too.
Acceptance, that just is who they are.
Right. And accepting that that's what happened to you, like
This
the
is the reality.
yeah, the repercussions of that. And did you ever circle back with them? And because at the point in which I kind of, in a way, healed my trauma, I don't even look at it that way. I never have given it that label. It was after my dad's death is when I was able to kind of just like, I think that was the pivot point in which I realized like, oh, he dealt with a lot of stuff. And that's how he became the person that he became. And sometimes as a parent, I find myself doing the things that he did sometimes and like kind of like trying to manage my children in an authoritarian way. Some of that's cultural too, but startles me to think that, wow, how did I must have internalized that pattern and I need to reevaluate that. It did startle me because I always considered myself so much different than my dad. But I think that when he did pass is when I kind of started that process of healing the trauma. and kind of bringing those emotions down and having that empathy. But, and that after that point, he was already, like, he was gone. But in your case, since your dad is still alive, did you ever circle back with him and say, hey, this is the work, the self-reflection, the processing that I've done, and I forgive you?
Not at this point because of his mental health and he was having memory issues. I was just focused on keeping things light and just sharing. He wanted to see photos of my children and he just wanted to, talk. And so I let him do that. But now I do have the opportunity. He's reached out and I will call. I'm not, I'm just past the point of being mad. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. I forgive. I just want to have this, if we choose to have a relationship, it feels healthy, just lighthearted and make fun memories and laugh. I just want to be able to do that. But yeah, I think I will talk about like if it's appropriate. Otherwise, I just have to let it go and know that I did it for me. If it's appropriate, I would love to say, I really forgive you. I have a better understanding of what you probably went through in life and that it couldn't have been easy. I would love to say that to him and him to understand that. I just don't know if he's mentally there. We'll have to see. Time will tell.
Because, I mean, obviously he can't make up for lost time, and nor can you, but
No.
you'll just have to start right now, like from
Yeah.
here on out. Yeah, from this day forward,
Yeah.
you know, to just rewrite a different story.
Right. And I think that that doesn't always happen, right? People stay mad and angry till the very end, and
Oh, yeah.
that's their right. That's okay. I am choosing to be open, and as long as he's in a healthy place and he's not being verbally abusive or things like that, and everything's lighthearted, I don't know that I will physically go see anymore, but I might just have phone conversations. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. I'm just kind of feeling it out. It's a process. There's no right or wrong. I'm just doing whatever feels right. And he's not fast to get back to me on things. And I don't want him to think that I'm mad because I'm most certainly not. So I will call and have a conversation. I'll kind of see where he's at. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in months. Not because I didn't want to. I tried calling and they never called back. And so I just had to like honor that they needed some time for whatever they were going through. And they've reached out. So I'm just going to call back and have a nice conversation, hopefully, and see where it goes. So I guess it's to be determined. And with my mom, I would love to have a conversation with my mom. I just don't think I can have it if she's in an altered state. If she should come out of an altered state and be more clear-headed and wants to have that conversation and is ready to like have it, sure, I'm open to it. I don't know if that will ever happen with her, unfortunately.
You know what's cool though in your situation is, and mine too, is because a lot of times when people have trauma, they hold in a lot of emotions, likely anger, resentment, and it keeps them from moving forward. It does for a lot of people, and then they don't have the tools to deal with their issues, or, and I'm not saying the issues are their fault, but to deal with the issues, the reality of the problems of their life, and so they turn to other things that are harmful to them. I've heard it described as like resentment is like whether it's you're accountable or not, poison for your body.
It's definitely poison for your body.
And for a lot of people, it holds them back from the potential person that they could start becoming, you know?
I agree. I see where my having anger and not forgiving affected me, and I see where the anxiety came from, and that the like some of the things I might have projected onto the kids came from. I'm like, and I didn't realize I was doing it, but they kind of I had to be accountable for it once it was brought to my attention, and I'm like, oh, because I didn't heal that, and had I maybe like healed that, I would have not done that. It was revolutionary. Like I'm like, but I didn't have the maturity in my early 20s to even know. It took time and just self-reflection therapy. I had therapy when I was 18, but I was still young, and I did write a letter to my mom, so she had a little bit of an understanding, but now that I've matured and had kids of my own and had more time to look at things and things have changed over time, I would love to have another conversation. Because I mean, I want to be open and honest. There's just no more like being nice and not talking about those things to spare somebody's feelings. I'm just not going to spare feelings. And I'm not angry. I'm just not. It's too tiring to be angry. I just can't do that in my life anymore. And it doesn't suit me and it doesn't get me anywhere. And so I want to be understanding and empathetic. And that's kind of where, and I was for it everybody else but my own parents. And now that I look back, I'm like, oh man, I wish I could have been more empathetic for them. I am now. So maybe that would have changed things early on. I'm not sure. But now I am. And so we can start fresh if they want to. And I think they do.
I'm just thinking about back to my dad. He just a commentary here. He's just like he was the the trauma the trauma child who became an adult, and he was the prototype in which his resentment of his childhood trauma caused him to, what's the right word? He just blamed everybody.
Oh, no
He was the
self-responsibility. Yeah.
blamer. Oh, he blamed everybody. Kind of reliving the past again, reliving those emotions. And if something went wrong, it was everybody's fault except him. So he never took accountability for himself.
See, my parents never did that either. That's interesting that you say that. They never took accountability. They never said, you're right, I apologize. They never did any of that. So I had to forgive anyway.
Yeah, but and so like looking at him, I tried not to be that type of person because like at some point it would be better for you to just like get into the process of healing this and not keep blaming people for this, that, and the other, and just accept, okay, time stamping this moment. Okay, everything in the past, you can't do anything about it. Like, and this is what I'm going to do here on out. But obviously, I know that that's a process, and it's a process that can be triggered by different experiences and age, and just removing yourself from that person. But I'm just thinking about that prototype of my dad. Always, he's just the trauma blamer.
Yeah, and he just never,
Never.
unfortunately, he just never learned. It's sad. It's really sad because you have one lifetime. Well, I mean, on Earth here. I mean, as of at this moment. And unfortunately, they didn't learn that lesson in that lifetime. So maybe they'll have to relearn it some other way, you know.
And I will say this too, it's fall, and so I was doing yard work. And this is what I thought about, and it relates to this topic of dealing with trauma. So we have this area in the back, in our backyard behind a fence that faces a street. We kind of neglect that area, to be honest, because it's really not in the forefront of our minds because we never go back out there. Well, guess what's been growing out there? Weeds, all kinds of weeds. And the weeds that come up are those prickly weeds. I mean, even with a gloved hand, when you grab those and try to pull them out from the roots, you get little thorns. Like they get embedded in your glove and then they prick you. And then you have to let go. You basically really have to dig deep to get those ones out. But it reminded me of unresolved trauma is like those prickly weeds. And they'll sting you every time.
That's such a good analogy. I love that. I love that.
And you got to dig deep for those ones. Seriously, you got to, because they have been years in the making, especially if you're an adult like us. And then, so we dealt with that. And then I have these grape plants, grapevines.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we have this arch and we let them grow during the summer. And then, come fall time, I cut them back. So I was doing that, cut them back and was putting them in the yard debris container, used my little pruning things to cut them down. And to me, it represented like, yes, you've had trauma in your past, and yes, it shows up as baggage. But because I have gotten to a point where I've accepted it and I had empathy, and at some point I had forgiveness, that I can cut those off when they show up in my life because they'll always be with you, right? Your trauma, your past will always be with you because that's how you grew up. That's how you became the person you are. And hopefully you're on the other side of it and can have more empathy for other people who are dealing with trauma in their current situation. But I could cut those grape vines down just kind of to like a shortened stump, and I could grab them up so easily and put them in the yard debris container. They didn't sting me like the weeds in the back parking strip. I can clip them, put them away, and they didn't sting me. Are they still there? Yeah. They're still there. They're still around, and maybe they get triggered now and then, but they don't sting me like those weeds in the back. So that's kind of what I kind of related it to, and I realized that as I was doing it too. I was like, wow, this is so much easier to put away to clean this up when you need to clean it up because your trauma will come back here and there.
Right. It pops up.
Memories, you're right. Memories, emotions will come back, but it's so easy to put away if you've gone through this process.
It's easier to acknowledge it, that that's a trigger or that's a moment, but I've healed that and let it go. And like each season changes, things will pop up, things seasonally, memories will pop up, and you can look at it, but it looks different. For me, it looks different. Like you were saying, it doesn't sting. I understand what it is and it's healed. So it's like, I'm not focused on it. It's time to be in the present. There's no new trauma coming my way because I know how to protect myself and set boundaries. And boundaries are very big with me. And I've always been very good about setting healthy boundaries, and I'm not afraid to set them. And that can make people mad. People don't like when you set a boundary with them, when they're a little bit more authoritative and controlling. And I'm like, too bad if that's the way it's going to be. So I just say that to anybody that, don't be afraid to set boundaries and step away, step back. Not everybody's going to understand it. But you have to do what's right for you and what's healthy for you and your mental health and your healing.
And I will say too that unless you're a little kid, even if you're like double digits, over 10 or
Right.
and as you get older, you have agency now. I
Yeah.
feel like as you get older, you have more agency. You become more independent. You're not relying on this person or these people. So that's the magic. That's one of the magic and developmentally appropriate keys into healing this trauma is you have agency, and you become independent, and then you can take matters into your own hand for the better, for a
Correct.
positive outcome.
And don't be afraid to share with a trusted person what you're going through. Don't be afraid of therapy. Don't be afraid a school counselor, whatever it may be, especially when you were younger. I didn't talk about anything with anybody, except for my sibling when I saw her. Um, I wish I had been a little bit more open. Maybe they would have been able to help me. Those that I did open up to, and maybe this is why I probably didn't always open up, is I kind of opened up a little bit and they'd be like, well, just, count to 10 when you find yourself in a situation where your parent is yelling, and then count to 10 and remain calm and you'll be 18 soon. That wasn't helpful. When you're living in a controlling, authoritative, abusive family and you're young and you have no voice, it's not helpful. So find people that are supportive and helpful that can maybe find you help or get you out of that situation if it doesn't feel safe. I wish I would have been able to voice that and get out of that situation, and get myself into a situation that was safer and where I could start to heal and get therapy. It just wasn't a thing back then.
It takes so much courage too.
And courage, because unfortunately the foster care system can be even scarier, and I kind of even knew that as a kid. I'm like, okay, what's the alternative if a family member can't take me in? Where am I? If I say something, they're going to take me away. Who am I going to live with? And like, is that going to be worse? Like, those are things that popped into my head as a kid, so I didn't really say anything. I just kind of tolerated it. But also, you feel like you're not, I wasn't strong enough, and I was a kid, and I shouldn't even have had to think about that sort of thing. But times were also not as open and supportive like they are now. We have internet now, and there's knowledge and stuff that, in perspective that I did not have as a kid, or the help that, to even know that I could ask for that sort of help. It wasn't open like it is now about mental health.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're in dire straits, you got to get out of that situation. And you have to be courageous enough and find that safe person that you could share that with so that you can get the help you need. And I mean, can you imagine years of that? That's,
It's devastating. It's
yeah.
devastating to your childhood, and you deserve to have the best childhood that you can have and make the best memories. And that inner child, healing that inner child, that's another thing. I still sometimes have an inner child that has to be healed. When things come up and get triggered, I have to look back and remember that, give that inner child a hug. I know it sounds silly, but sometimes we stay stuck at the ages that we were traumatized, and then it keeps us immature in that way. And I had to really heal that in order to mature and grow in other aspects so that I wasn't childlike, that I was more of an adult. And I can make my own choices. I'm not going through that same situation anymore. I have a voice, and it took me a long time to have a voice, and I'm still learning how to have a voice. And I think when you're a kid, you are scared to voice your opinion. You're scared that there's going to be a repercussion. You're, depending on your situation, you have to like be as safe and practical as you can, and that when you're surviving, you do what you have to do to survive. And so I just say if you can share with a trusted person, do that. That way you can hopefully get out of a situation and into a better one. This was really good. I'm glad that we talked about this. If you guys like what we're all about, please join us next time on Be On It.
Thank
Bye.
you. We are all about community. Join our community by following and subscribing to Be On It through YouTube, Instagram, and of course your podcasting platform so we can continue to bring Be On It to you. Just so you know, this is for entertainment purposes only. We are speaking from our lived experiences and are not licensed therapists.